All right, we're now ready to dive into strings. Strings in Python are awesome. They're pretty easy to work with, right? First thing we should do is we should open up Spider. In Spider, we're going to declare a string. Let's declare the name of my dog. So we're going to introduce a variable. The name of that variable is dog, and the value that we're going to store in that variable is Scout, the name of my dog. Now, you see here I used single quotation marks, but we could have just as easily done double quotation marks. Either of these will work, right? So essentially what we have is one command saying to name Scout, the variable dog Scout, and then we do the exact same thing afterwards. So if we run it, it's still just going to produce one variable, and its name is going to be Scout, okay? Straightforward enough. Next it says you can assign multi-line string if you use 3 double or single quotations at the beginning and the end. So we could say a poem is equal to, let's do 3 single quotes, and then you say the happy dog ate all his food. Just like that. And when I run this, you'll see that right here, this poem keeps those spaces in it, right? In fact, if we could print this, we could print the poem. So let's go print, and we're going to type in poem, because that's the name of the variable holding this string. So since print is expecting a string, and poem is a string type variable, it should run this no problem. So we print it, and sure enough, the happy dog ate all his food. So it kept those spaces, right? We call those carriage returns. They're new lines. Okay. We could have just as easily done this with the double quotation marks by putting 3 of those in a row. That would have also been allowed. Okay. What else do we got? It says strings are arrays, and the elements of the array can be accessed with square brackets. So what does that mean? Well, a string is a bunch of characters, right? What this means is that we can access individual characters starting with 0. Python starts counting from 0. Don't ask me, I didn't make that rule. That's what they do. So when we do this dog 0, that's going to access the character at the 0th position, right? The very first position. So if we come down here and type that in here to my console and we hit out there, it's going to return capital S because that's the first character, right? We could do it to the next character by typing in 1 there, right? So if you hit up, that's going to bring our previous thing. Now it's going to be 1, and you see that it is S, C, and we could keep on going. In fact, we could go backwards too. We could say the -1, that's going to return the 1 back from the end, right? So there we go, -1. We could do it -2, and that's going to give us U, and so forth, right? So that is how these indexes worked, okay? We'll talk a little bit more about those when we get to slicing in a minute. Now, we're not able to change an individual value. For example, if I say dog at the 0 position is equal to T, it gives me an error because strings are not changeable. We can't change the string, right? We can grab chunks of letters at a time. Instead of grabbing a single letter, we can grab chunk. This is called slicing. So to do this, we're going to take dog, the name of our variable, and now I'm going to put the colon there. That means take everything from the start all the way up to the third variable. So that's going to include the 0th and the first letter and the second letter, but not to the one in position 3. It's going to go up to position 3. So when we run that, the 0 position, the 1 position, and the 2 position, it does not deliver the 3 position, okay? Or we could go the other way. Like, let's do this. Let's do dog, and we're going to go, give me the letters from 3 until the end, right? So now it will start with 3, so it's going to give us U and T, right? See how this works? And you could pick any number in between. Right? If we go from position 1 up to 4, then it skips the 0 and it stops at 4. All right, so that is slicing. We will do a lot more slicing this class because you use that for lots of things. But that's the idea behind slicing. Let's see. You can get the length of a string using the function len, right? So length will tell us how many characters are in it, right? So if over here we want to say number equals the length of our, let's see, poem, it will tell us all of the characters in poem, right? So we can go ahead and run that. When we hit F5, up's going to come here. Number, it says that there's 30 characters in there, right? So there are 30 characters in this poem that we wrote, okay? So that's length. You can check to see if a certain phrase or character is present in a string by using the keyword in or not in. So we can say, is S in dog? and it responds true, right? It sends back the Boolean value of true, right? We could ask it if capital T in dog, and it's going to say false. But if we ask lowercase t in dog, it will say true. So this is case sensitive when you're using the in and the out command, okay? Or in and not in command, right? If you have something that is not a string, that is, say, a number, you can convert it to a string using the str function. So let's do an example of this. Right now, number is an integer, right? It is not a string, it's a number. It has a value of 30. If we wanted to turn that into 30, the string, we could do that. We could say, let's say we want to print that, right? We're going to print, we're going to do str, we're going to turn it into a string number, right? So by doing so, number has been turned into a string, so when we hit print here, it's going to spit out the poem and then 30, right? So that's turning a string, something else into a string using the string str command. If you want to intentionally add a new line, then you can do that with the \n, right? So essentially what we're seeing here is by me hitting enter here, that introduced a \n, right? Now, you can see that if we have this printed out. Let's do that. We're going to type here list poem. List is, we'll talk about lists later. It's essentially going to list all the characters out in the string, right? And sure enough, right here we see the happy, and then you see the /n. So that is the carriage return between happy and dog. You see the /n, that's the new character space. So that's not a space, it's a new line, okay? So that's what that symbol means. And we've already talked about slicing. So there's lots of useful methods available when working with strings. For example, strip will remove any white space from the beginning or the end, right? Right, so we could do that. You could do lower, and that will return the string in all lowercase, right? So we could call this variable lower dog, and that equals dog, but we're going to apply the method .lower, right? So remember, a method is always applied after the variable. So dog dot, and then you type the method. So when we run this, we're going to see a new variable over here, lower dog, and sure enough, see the capital S is now a lowercase s. So that worked great, okay? There's upper, which does the exact opposite. Upper dog, you can imagine what this is going to do. If we take dog and we apply to it the upper, it's going to take all of our lowercase variables, lowercase characters, and make them uppercase. So let's run it and see. And sure enough, Scout is now all uppercase, okay? Other great methods you can use, there's replace. You can replace a character with another character in a string. How about this one? So let's rename our dog Scoot instead of Scout, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to call this a new name is equal to dog, but we're going to replace the U with the O. And if you didn't remember the syntax, it gives you a key. It gives you a tip right here. It says the old, tell what the old string is, tell what the new string is, right? And there's even other things, like you can only do it to the first number if you want, like only replace the first 3 or 4 or 5. Right now, the way I've got it, it's going to replace everything. So if we run this, we're going to get a new dog name, and sure enough, Scout has become Scoot, okay? What else can we do? There's split. This is a really cool thing. It will split your string up into smaller chunks, right? So you need to tell it what you want it to split by. So if you've ever worked in Excel and you've had comma-separated values, we often want to split on those commas. So let's do this. Let's split here our poem. Let's split that using the blank spaces. Every time that there's a space, let's make that a new word. So how about this? We're going to do poem dot split. We're going to split on those, right? And now that's going to give us back a list. You see that this arrow here says it's going to return a list. We haven't talked a lot about lists yet, but that's essentially what we have with our strings. Strings are a list of characters. This is now going to return a list of strings, right? So let's have it return the first one, right? So this should be the word the if we've done it correctly. So let's test this. Let's try and print this line out, right? So let's take this whole thing, and let's bring it down here and see what it gives us. Yeah, sure enough, it gives us the word the. If we wanted it to give us the second word, then we would put 1 in there. So let's hit up, and then here instead of 0, let's type 1. This better be so happy this time. And sure enough, happy, but check this out. This time it says happy, then it has this symbol right there. That character, remember the \n means give it a new line. That's not the same thing as a space, and so it didn't split on it. So if we wanted to just have happy, we would need to go through this again and split also on the \n character. Okay, but that's how the split and replace works. Okay, and then there's count. Count will tell you the number of times a given character shows up in your string. So we could say this. We could say poem. We're going to count all the times that the letter E shows up in that poem. So we're going to do poem.count. Then we're going to give it the letter. So it's going to be E. I count just one. Let's do a different one that counts more than one. How about A? 1, 2, 3. There should be 3. Right? So we're going to count 3 and have it give it to us. And sure enough, it counts that there are 3 of those in there. So you can see how these methods are super helpful. These make it so we don't have to do nearly as much programming because we can rely on these built-in methods that are provided for us in Python. Okay. Well, what else? Let's say a little bit more about what happens if you want to type something and it includes one of the letters that we're not allowed to use. For example, a quotation mark, right? What if I wanted to say this? If I wanted to print this, I wanted to say, we're going to print my dog's name is Scout. My dog's, so we need to do DOG'(S), right? So how are we going to do that? So we're going to say my dog's name is, and then we would do comma and then Scout. Look what's happened. Can you see the problem here? We've got lots of problems. We're only allowed to put strings here, and this is a bunch of other stuff. So something's wrong here, and we needed this to be an apostrophe there, but just one. But now it's wrong too because this needs to be a variable name. So what we needed to do is we need to use the escape key. The escape key is the \ key followed by one of these other characters depending on what you want it to show. So we want it to show the apostrophe. So we're going to do a \apostrophe. Now it's going to read out my dog's name is Scout. So let's go ahead and run that. I'm just going to run that one section. And again, I can highlight that and then hit F9 to run a single line. And it says Scout is not defined. Do you see the problem here? I got too fast here. I told it to print out the variable Scout, but Scout is not a variable. Dog is the variable. The value of Scout is stored into the variable dog, so I need to replace Scout with dog. So now let's try that again. So on this line, I'm just going to hit F9, and this time it says my dog's name is Scout. And look, it included that apostrophe. So that's how you use the escape key. You could make it do lots of cool things. In fact, there's something else you could do. I think this will work. You can put an R in front, and that means read it literally. We could do this. We could do a double quotation mark, a single, and then we could do a double quotation, and I think that this will work. Let's try running that. Yeah. So what does the R do? The R means take this literally. The characters just take them as they are. You still have to have something at the beginning and the end. In this case, I use double quotations so that I could use oops, that's in the wrong spot. I could use this single quotation in the middle, but it worked just fine to say my dog's name is Scout. Okay, so that is how you do these escape keys, and that's just some of the basics of working with strings. Okay, all right, let's dive into our next video, which is going to be on Booleans.